Welcome back, friends. Thanks for joining me. My name is Leon Piddard. I'm the host of Fairdinkum Radio. We are broadcasting from the land down under in Australia. Well, we're often talking about the autonomy of the individual and how our autonomy is being eroded slowly but surely. One of the greatest autonomies that we have as individuals is the right to choose what takes place with our body. We often talk about vaccines and medications and things that enter our body and how we want to have a choice in regard to these things. Nothing could be more pertinent than the choice regarding food and water. The actual human right to have clean food and clean water, chemical-free, free of processing if that is what you choose. Now, recently in the United States has been raids on raw milk cooperatives who have been sharing raw milk amongst their individual members. Well, in Australia, in South Australia, 2 weeks ago, there was a raid on a Moo View Dairy cooperative. Mark Tyler is the chap that runs the dairy cooperative down there, and it was raided by Biosecurity. That's right, folks, raw milk raids in Australia. Well, joining us to talk about it is our friend Anne Bressington from South Australia. Anne, welcome along.
Thank you, Leon, and hello to all your listeners.
Well, it is great to have you back, and unfortunately, every time we seem to get you, it's more news, which is unfortunately bad news. Now, you have an intimate connection with the Moo View Dairy. You yourself are a participant in this program. Tell us a little bit about how it works.
Well, Leon, you buy a share in a cow, and each share entitles you to 1.5 litres of fresh milk. And you also contribute through a fee, an annual fee, to the veterinary care of the cow, to the feed. Basically what the dairy does is provide the adjustment, milk the cow, filter the milk, bottle it up and delivers it to a drop-off point where we pick up our milk from our cow.
And so this is really grassroots share farming, really. It's really just people that have a share in the actual farm, and as a result, they get some of the produce. In this case, it's milk. I mean, if it was a vegetable farm and you had a share in that, you'd be eating, the fruits or the vegetables. But in this case, it is milk, and the people who are all participants in it want to drink raw milk. In other words, unpasteurised milk and milk that hasn't been processed.
That's right. That's right, and this particular co-op has been operating now in South Australia for almost 5 years, and in that 5 years there has been absolutely no problems, nobody's taken ill or, and the minister here, Minister Gal Gago, has made some absolutely outrageous statements, both in the media and in Parliament, about the safety of consuming this raw, pure milk. And they have basically said that they intend to prosecute Mark Tyler for operating this co-op. And it's interesting to know, Leon, that when he first got the idea, because he's a third-generation farmer, I do believe, dairy farmer, and when he first got this idea to do the cow share, he actually went to the authorities and asked them if they could help him to set up monitoring and testing regimes that would, ensure the safety of his product and that he met with standards. And they ignored him. In 5 years, almost 5 years, he's not had a response from the department on that matter. So, this whole thing, they want to sell it as a public health concern, but I know, and you know, and probably many of your listeners know, this is about the corporatisation of our food, supply of our food chain, and limiting our choice of what we can and can't consume.
Yeah, that's it. And we've talked on this program before about the far-reaching aims of Agenda 21, and not only Agenda 21, but this really goes to the broader picture of what is taking place worldwide. And you mentioned it there. It is the corporatisation of every single resource on Earth, whether it be the rainwater, whether it be the air we breathe, whether it be the carbon dioxide, or in this case, we are talking about raw milk. But let's go back a little bit, and if you could just share your own personal reasons for actually taking part in this. I mean, a lot of people understand that the dead food industry, I call it today, which is the corporate food that you buy by some of the major fast food giants and many of the big conglomerate supermarket chains, is food that has been interfered with. It's been processed to a point where the food value has diminished so much. And why don't you just share with us, Anne, why you actually your family chose, to buy shares in this Moo View Dairy Cooperative?
Well, Leon, I was put onto this probably about 8 months ago. A friend of mine is a shareholder, and I was raised on raw milk, and anyway, she was talking to me about their health benefits and whatever, and as you know, I have been quite ill for a long time from ingesting fluoridated water, and once I got off that, my health improved, but I still had some leftovers, if you like, gut problems that I couldn't quite clear up, the chronic fatigue stuff, and, a whole range of things. Plus I have a granddaughter who is lactose intolerant, and because of that, has food allergies and was covered in eczema. So I did my research, and I found out that cow's milk has about 400 different kinds of fatty acids in it, and that those fatty acids and the proteins in raw milk are actually destroyed when the milk's pasteurised and homogenised, or just pasteurised. That the bacteria in raw milk have been shown to be antibacterial, protect against cancer, prevent intestinal absorption of pathogenic bacteria and toxins, and also that raw milk is a great reliever for killing bacteria, and basically a great preventative for
many
cancer.
Different health benefits. Now tell me, have you, after doing that research and your family now taking raw milk, using raw milk in your diet, have you noticed a health benefit?
Oh, Leon, it's been a God-saving thing, I've got to say. My gut has never been, or hasn't been better for 20 years. It's the best that it's been in 20 years. The chronic fatigue has subsided greatly. I sleep well. I wake up fresh. My appetite, I can actually eat foods now that I couldn't tolerate because it required digestion. My granddaughter, within 3 weeks, Leon, her eczema was completely gone.
Amazing.
And they had tried, the old cortisone treatments, the whole thing with her, and within 3 weeks, gone.
So here is a natural raw, if you like, application of nature on nature. In other words, we are taking an animal product here, but ingesting it in the human being, you have literally seen in your own family a benefit. And let's say before that, everyone would have been ingesting a pasteurised, homogenised milk, right?
Well, that's right, and she was lactose intolerant because of the pasteurisation process. Because the pasteurisation process, as I said, basically destroys the protein chains in the milk. It leaves more lactose in the milk unable to be absorbed, and basically it leaves you with a lot of sugar and very little health benefit. And, the other thing about raw milk, Leon, is that it's been proven that it defends us against anaphylactic allergies. Now, how often do we hear in the news the professionals say they don't understand why our children are developing peanut allergies and all of those allergies, and they have to carry around one of those adrenaline pens in case they come into contact, breathe in the air where a peanut is present. Well, this is one of the reasons why, that those fatty acids and proteins and other, enzymes in the milk actually provide us with protection against anaphylactic allergies.
Well, that's right.
The benefits of this are huge.
Well, let's talk about the politics of it and indeed the place we've come to in Australia today. Food markets, farmers markets, cooperatives really are a tradition in Australia. We have a pretty large cooperative here. I remember one stage where you could go to any dairy and pick up a bucket of milk and put a lid on it and take it home. Let's talk about the way that things are changing, where we have these authoritarian collectivist groups called, in this case, Biosecurity, that have basically come along and said, well, look, we are going to intervene here. You cannot you cannot have this milk the way that you want it. And this goes to the heart. You mentioned fluoride, and we'll get into some of the other issues connected with this. But the real heart of this issue is, isn't it, that the individual's choice is being taken away by an authority? In other words, the authority is saying, you cannot drink raw milk now because we want to come in and interfere with it. We want to allocate it. And I refer to an interview by Jeff Raven on 5AA where he said that once it leaves the farm gate, we lose control. Now, what's happened to the fact that as human beings, you and I want to have control over what goes into our stomachs?
Well, Leon, that's that's a very good point, because the biosecurity raid on Moo View was purely political. I asked a question in Parliament about who actually laid the complaint in the first place. And was it, somebody who had been a consumer of raw milk and had an issue, or was it a trade competitor? And, of course, the minister's way out of this is that, there is an investigation pending, so she can't answer those sorts of questions. My guess is that it is a trading competitor who belongs to the Dairy Association, who instigated this raid, because Mark Tyler, the owner of Moo View Farm, is not complying and is actually has a great number of people who are consuming his milk, and nobody's benefiting but him and the consumers. There is no middleman. There is no charge to process this milk, and he's actually, making money on this particular co-op, and everyone else is cut out of it. And when they say they have no control over this, that's exactly what this is about, because the shareholders take full responsibility for, picking up the milk. There's no people in between. We don't have to go to the supermarket. It is. It's exactly about the breaking of that control mechanism that they have enforced on us under the guise of a public health initiative to pasteurise milk. And in actual fact, it would appear from a lot of studies that pasteurised milk is doing us more harm than good.
Absolutely. Now, what I ask here is who gains from this intervention? Now, of course, I know the answer, but we want to talk about it. Who gains from biosecurity coming in and stopping this operation, or somehow intervening with someone now having to do testing, or saying, well, it's absolutely banned. There's a ban on raw milk. Let's follow this where it could go. The only only entities that would gain out of that is the actual bureaucracy and the corporation who aren't getting the milk sales, and the supermarkets. Isn't this obviously who is behind the raid? It's the people who are losing out on this on this industry that could actually grow when people say, hey, we want more of this, we want more raw milk. Let's say there's 10,000 consumers, there'll be someone in supermarkets or in milk cooperatives saying, well, hang on, we're losing out on this much money here, we've got to intervene.
That's exactly right. And not only that, Leon, but it poses the question about the, the practices now that go into the care and milking of cows on dairies that are providing Coles and Woolworths with the milk at the gate. Because Mark Tyler has to be very careful about the sort of feed that he provides to these cows. So you can't just turn a normal dairy overnight into a cow share program. So we now know that, conventional milking in dairies can often allow pus into the milk, and that cows can contract certain sorts of illnesses because of the feed that they are fed, that they can also be poor producers of milk because of that feed. And this would mean, if this was to take off, and I do believe it will, that the dairy industry is going to be brought under scrutiny that has never occurred before. And, there's going to be a lot of questions asked about why consumers have been led to believe that consuming a substandard product, as in pasteurised milk, is the only way to go. Well, and there are many, many people now asking that question.
Well, this was one of my questions, which I'm really glad you mentioned, and that was, and this is probably a question for Mark, but I'll ask you anyway until I get to talk with him. But is the actual practices on Mark Tyler's dairy, in your opinion, from what you know, different from, mass-produced dairies where, where they know that it is going through a homogenised, pasteurised setup to sterilise the milk anyway? I mean, does he use conventional methods, or does he lean more towards the natural production and care of his animals?
Oh, absolutely. Mark's whole thing is happy cows, healthy cows produce better milk. So he takes a great deal of pride in the care and attention that he pays to his animals, like I said, what he feeds them, how he rotates their feeding program, that they are getting whole food in their diet rather than, food that's been mucked around with.
Intervened.
And his whole I guess the pride in his work and the pride in the product that he produces really says it all. Yep. Because, he has an option, Leon. He can label his milk as pet milk and not for human consumption, and this whole thing would be over.
Yep.
But he's not going to do that because he said, this is a good product, this is creating good health in people. Why would I want to say that it's only fit for pets?
Absolutely, and good on him. And he shouldn't have to, because what we've got to do is stand up and resist these bureaucracies that are wanting to take control of every aspect of our lives. I mean, as it is, people have got to fight to get fluoride out of the water. I mean, we've got to fight for labelling so that we know whether or not GMO's in our food. We haven't got correct labelling laws in this country. We don't even know a lot of the produce that's come into this country, whether or not it's from Australia or Africa or anywhere else. So there's all these issues where the autonomy of the individual is being taken away just for the benefit of the corporate control of food, water. In this case, we're talking about milk. Now, and what I wanted to ask you was, you did ask a question in Parliament regarding this raid that took place. And you did mention it before. Can you reiterate the question you made and the response that was given?
Well, the response turned into a verbal stout. I just asked the Minister. Yesterday on 5AA, the Minister stated her outrage that bottled milk provided to shareholders from their own cows was not labelled or stamped with the use-by date. When a person buys their share in a cow, they are provided with instructions on how to store and handle the milk. And when a person collects that milk, it is fresh on the day, and the document provided states clearly that when stored at 4 degrees or below, the milk will last for 7 to 10 days. The minister also stated that Fsanz found that raw milk was too risky to allow distribution to the public. So my questions were, why would bottles need to be labelled and dated when shareholders are already aware of the conditions of the use of raw milk and the use by date? How does the minister explain the decision of Fsanz now allowing the sale of raw milk at the gate in New Zealand with consumers allowed to bring their own containers? Good enough for New Zealand, not good enough for South Australia. Will the minister make known the nature of the complaint brought against Moo View? Was it a consumer complaint or was it a trading competitor's complaint? Now, there are a couple of other questions too, but she refused to answer any of those questions. Instead, she did a rave on saying that she can't believe that I was so irresponsible as to condone the use of a product, got this, that is known to cause women to miscarry their babies.
Unbelievable.
Now, I've got a document here that says analysis of Centres for Disease Control, data on raw milk, outbreaks listed, no cases whatsoever of foodborne illness from raw milk caused by listeria during the entire 13-year period from 1993 to 2005. Now, it's the listeria bug that they say causes this miscarriage of babies. But there have been no cases listed. In that same period, Leon, deaths due to FDA-approved prescription drugs, 1,060,000 people. Yes. Deaths due to USDA-approved foods, produce, 3,330. Poultry, 2,780. Pork, 820. Yep. Fish, 710. Beef, 550. Deaths due to unapproved raw milk, 0. So what they're doing is using this fear factor based on nothing but BS to win their argument, because you know what? They have not got a leg to stand on. They're claiming that Mark Tyler has broken the law. He has not broken the law. He is not selling the milk. And, he's well within the guidelines, and the testing on his milk came back clear. The sad part about this, Leon, in my view, was that the biosecurity raid that took place 2 weeks before that, the biosecurity officer, went to Mark's farm and insisted on immediate entry into the shareholder program because his wife really needed the milk. Yeah. He returned 2 weeks later as one of the biosecurity officers to raid the farm. Yeah. So what he did was try to gather information about how this was working, and then has really, it seems, falsified reports to the minister on the security of the product. Yeah. Now, when they tested the milk for pathogens, they all came back fine except for one sample, which tested positive for E. coli at 10%, the acceptable level in the Fsanz standard. But that actual sample was done from a glass bottle provided by the shareholder, which had residual water in it. Yep. Which would mean the water that we're paying the government to supply us with contains E. coli.
Now that bureaucratic spy infiltrated the network, and seemingly for the purpose of getting the information. And as happens in so many of these cases, the complaint did not come from someone being sick, but came seemingly from this internal source. In other words, there was someone else that instigated the whole thing. He come in, become a member, got the information, and then the raid happened.
That's right. I call them provocateurs.
Absolutely.
They come in
communist
and They're like spies.
They are.
You know?
They're turncoats.
Who thought we lived in Russia?
Yep. Well, they're turncoats.
Where you can't even trust a person knocking on your door to get involved in a program that they're spying for the government. What the hell?
Yep. The problem is, Anne, like we are in trouble in this country because what we've described here, and I remember when you first come out in the open about Agenda 21, when you said that we are in trouble in this country. This is why we're in trouble, because this is the bureaucracy endeavouring to take control over every aspect of our lives. Like we just have in New South Wales a media-sponsored program, which is mandatory vaccination program, which has basically allowed made preschools mandatory to ban children. They've got to show their papers before they turn up, whether or not they're vaccinated. Now, I know that's a different subject, and I haven't talked to you about it, but what I'm saying is...
But it's not that different, Leon.
It isn't. There's a trend here.
It's all about control.
It is. There's a trend here, and it's all about what happens to our bodies and to our children's bodies, and in this case, it's got to do with the food you want to eat. And soon, what the next step will be, you won't be able to milk a cow unless it's under some sort of certification and some sort of white coat jurisdiction. But listen,
That's right.